Bethan, what a pleasure it is to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. Up in the big smoke.
I know, you're off out for tapas and
wine and cocktails
tonight, so I won't keep you too long.
Brilliant.
Can you tell me a little about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Bethan. I'm a psychotherapist. I specialise in parenting and I'm a mum of 3, and that's where the fun began, really.
That's where you learnt that parents need help.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, so when I became a parent, I worked in the charity sector. I was training to be a therapist. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be an amazing mom. I'm going to be breastfeeding, sandal wearing, baby wearing. And when it came down to it, I gave birth the first time. First of all, my husband didn't believe I was in labour because he was 6 weeks early. And then 3 hours later, I was like, I really think we need to get to hospital now.
Yeah.
I had a crazy birth. And then they gave me a person to look after, which I think when you have that many tears and shreds, and it's like the most bizarre situation. If I'd have been in a car crash, no one would have given me a newborn baby to look after. So then I came home with a child and I just wasn't the parent I thought I would be. Now, I think it's really important to say that this is nothing to do with my son, who was my firstborn. This is me. And it's a really important part of parenting is that we are activated by our children. In birth, in the way they behave, we are activated. But I did not know this. Nobody told me when I became a mom that my early attachment to my mother would be reignited, that any time, and this isn't a pointing fingers at my mom, this is just a factual thing, that any time at significant development milestones as a baby and a toddler, if I felt unloved, if I felt uncared for, this would stir up feelings in me as a mother, and like ghosts of my past would be lived out with my children. And I think I read all the pregnancy books and nobody told me that.
Okay.
Which is huge to know. Though? Yeah, absolutely. So on the train on the way up, I was listening to more training around this with like perinatal psychotherapists, because I've worked a lot with women who have had really intrusive thoughts over wanting to kill their babies. And I know that's kind of at one end of the spectrum. And then at the other end might be women who hate their children. Like I see on your stories a lot. Do you know you do the confessions and it's fabulous. I love the anal sex ones and all that.
I thought you were going to say I love anal sex and then just leave it at that.
yeah. And I'm going now, bye. Although I was at a dinner party during the week and one of the women in it said, isn't that just a thing for your 20s, anal sex?
or your anniversary. Once a year.
Yeah. Oh, my husband will be pleased. Rock on September. But like loads of, I think it's mums reply to your stories.
Oh yeah, it's like mainly I think maybe 98% of my followers would be probably, they're definitely women, and the majority of them are my age and above, or maybe a little bit younger, but certain. So I'm 43.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of people that dislike their kids, dislike their stepkids, or I even got one in today. I didn't put it up yet, but it was like, my child is 13 and I absolutely can't even look at them. They are just so hateful towards me. I don't know how I actually gave birth to this thing. And people really feel it. And
it's so sad, isn't it? That but it's also like that is parenthood. I say to parents, okay, we have to find a space to welcome the hatred. And they go, what? You're crazy, Bethan. And I always say, but the thing that you want to change in your child is the thing you have to change in yourself first. And a lot of parents go, I don't know if I want to do that because it takes deep courage. Like I'm a therapist. I go to therapy and there are parts of myself that I think my therapist is amazing. Oh my God, I don't know if I want that person to know that about me. We're filled with deep shame about the darkest parts of ourselves. And what we're seeing in our children when they tell you to fuck off or tell them they hate you or whatever is the darkest parts of themselves. So and this is where parents, we have this amazing possibility to make that feeling safe, because it's not the feeling that we have that's the problem. It's that we feel bad about having it. So these 13-year-olds who are full of hate and hormones and all the rest of it, our job is to find a way of accepting that. So then these kids, I know they're not kids, but can tolerate themselves. And if a parent is feeling real hatred for a child, it can partly be because of they are being activated inside by a memory from their childhood. So like we don't remember consciously everything that's ever happened because we'd be even crazier than we all are, you know. But our bodies remember it, and our minds were, you know, even a tiny baby is creating a memory of something. So we are activated by our children.
But when you say activated, so say a kid is acting out and you're just angry that they're acting out, that anger isn't because of the way you were as a baby or treated as a baby. Is it not just a direct reaction to the fact that your kid has been a little bollocks?
Well, yeah, but it's also a combination of everything because, you know, children are very precious, but the relationship is really precarious because, yeah, I mean, I'm a mom of 3. It's not like the Waltons in my house, you know.
Is it not, Bethan? It's very like the Waltons in my house.
And, you know, yeah, sometimes kids can be really annoying. But you see, all behaviour is communication. So really, kids are just letting us know that they're totally pissed off with something, that they hate this thing, that they don't want this thing. And sometimes it's just well, that's the way it is, actually. You have to wash.
Yeah.
You know?
Or you can't get your phone 24/7. Or
Yes, exactly. Or, you know, I didn't develop the biology of a human being. You have to eat fruit and vegetables. You know, I didn't make that rule up.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, their brains don't have any way of doing anything else other than being reactive. It's only when we're a lot older that we can begin to have a choice and information I don't like, how will I respond? And even then, like, I'm a grey adult. I don't do that all the time. Sometimes I open my mouth and my mother falls out and I think,
That's the name of your podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, it's called the Mum Mind Podcast, or How to Stop Your Mother Falling Out Your Mouth.
I'm like that. It's such an amazing analogy for
everything.
And is it basically like, because I find myself like, this is my mother, right? So I will say on a breezy day, oh Jesus, this is a fierce, lovely wind out there now, lovely breeze, I'm going to put the wash out. And I'm like, that's just like my mother. And, you know, my mother's amazing though. Shout out to my mum. But I do find myself, I have become her as I've got older in a lot more ways than I would have thought ever possible.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think, again, that's like our default mode. You know, like in my mind and in my experience as a therapist, we're 2 things. We're our genes and we are the environment that we grew up in. Those 2 things form us hugely. Now, the good news that if you think, oh my God, I'm doomed, this is terrible, I don't want to hear this, is that we can change. You know, we can change how we respond, we can change how we react, we can change our triggers, but ultimately we are those 2 things, which is why, I mean, we're really up against it in life. You know, so much of the things, the way we react and the things that happen to us aren't our fault. You know, so I always hope in some way that people can learn to be kinder to themselves. I think if we could nail that in society, a lot would change.
There's a lot spoken about gentle parenting these days. Yeah. You know, you see the memes online saying, you know, the child's like, hey, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Yeah. But then he's like screaming at him going, go for yourself and all this. Yeah. What is your thought about this gentle parenting thing? It seems very... I think that some parents would see that and go, Christ, I'm really not like that, and feel the shame and feel the guilt and that they're not always talking gently to their children and ask them nicely to put on their shoes. But that's what I'm seeing, you know, in a quick 5-second Instagram reel. I'm sure there's much more to it than that.
Well,
no, really.
Well, so I'll tell you, I've worked really extensively with teenagers in the last 18 years, and I feel really lucky because sometimes I get to, well, all the time, I get to be with them in a way that their parents don't, that their teachers don't, and I really get to see them and understand them over time, you know. And one of the things that they say is that there's too much fluffing around from parents. You know, that there's too much like, oh, if you don't want to put your shoes on, it's okay. You can, you know.
So kids actually say this themselves?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you see, children don't know the edges of life. It's kind of a difficult concept. But so many children develop anxious behaviours and thoughts from parents over talking to them. And I meet many parents who come to me and they say, I don't know if I can just say no to my child. I'm like, well, if you don't, they were going to get a big land when they go out into society and don't get the girlfriend, the boyfriend, the job, the loan, the house, whatever it is. You know, children need a parent to be their leader. And that means that sometimes we're light years ahead, sometimes we're a nanosecond ahead of them, but they need them to be able to take them through stuff and say, right, come on, we're going to do this. But it has to be done with kindness, you know, not shame. Okay. And so many children, the biggest thing that teenagers say to me is my parents overtalk to me. And there's this whole gentle parenting about, I see that you're very angry right now and it's okay to be angry and I'm here with you. I see all this and honestly it drives me flipping bananas as a therapist.
Okay.
Because so there's two languages. There's the language of logic and there's the language of feelings. Children live in the language of feelings. The language of logic isn't fully developed in their brain. I mean, the two sides of the brain, maybe at like 10 or 11, they start to communicate a bit more. So if you're using all this logic to talk to a child, they're just thinking, you don't understand me at all. I'm telling you I'm really angry and you're talking logic, but the feeling is lost at sea. The feeling is just waving around like, I'm so angry. And the parents trying to reassure them with words. But children...
So how should you reassure them? How do you deal with a child then that's like, I don't know, acting out or saying, I'm not going to come for a walk with you on Sunday because I hate you and I just want to stay at home?
Yeah, well, it depends how old they are.
Okay.
You know, and so deflection is really great for the younger kids. You know, I'm imagining like a toddler. And play is so important. You know, I think I always feel like in my work there's 3 zones of emotional regulation. And I use them in colours because I'm wildly dyslexic and it's kind of how my brain works.
Dyslexic?
Wildly dyslexic.
And you were counting and actually you were doing the sound check here before you started and you were counting 1 to 10. You said your husband would be dead proud of you because you were able to count 1 to 10 because you have an issue
to do it
sometimes
3 times.
Counting. Yeah, but I find that really interesting.
And I do CrossFit as well and you have to count all your reps and I'm like, oh God, I've no clue.
But isn't that's another topic entirely, but isn't that interesting? And did you struggle in school with that?
Oh,
then?
massively struggled.
And probably were perceived as stupid or something like that.
100%.
Yeah, when you're
just
not
an idiot.
really, yeah.
And bad and didn't do my homework. But I would have studied so much. But I was studying like the wrong language. Like the language in my head is not the language that's printed in kids' workbooks. So my 3 kids go to a Gael school. I mean, blow your mind.
Well, like, I mean, in fairness now, you're just like self-flagellating there, aren't you? Like, come off it. You could have decided not to send them to a girls' school, so I do not feel any sorry. I don't feel any sorry for you at all in any way.
But there's Google Lens, but they're fine. You see, I see in them they can sit and do homework. They can read a book. Nothing moves. Like I read a book. I read from right to left for a long time, and nobody told me that you didn't do that.
Oh my goodness, isn't it mad the way the brain works?
Yeah, and nobody said you don't read from right to left, Bethan. You read from left to right. And I thought, there you go.
Oh, the story makes much more sense now. Wow.
Everything in life. And so this is the same with children, which is why I feel that I really get when these teens talk to me and they say, but they're talking a language I don't get. And I think, I get that. I know I have an experience that's different to yours, but I know that experience of feeling really unheard and feeling really misunderstood. So
we just like segued straight into why you became a therapist there, and I'm really good, aren't I?
Really good. You should become a therapist.
Okay, so I cut across you completely there because you said you see in colours or you think in colours. So
yeah,
go back to that point, please.
So there's 3 zones of emotional regulation, right? There's our threat system, which is red, which is like our fight or flight, which is anger, shame, disgust, fear, all the big stuff we don't like in kids, right? And ourselves. But let's talk about kids because it's way easier to talk about other people than ourselves. And then there's the blue circle, which is our drive system, which is the thing that makes us want to do and achieve more. And I'm convinced as a person and as a therapist that actually gets us into loads of trouble because we have this ability to keep on going and keep on going. So, you know, when kids pester you and pester you and pester you, and even us to keep on going and hit a wall, sometimes we need to hit the wall before we stop. It's bizarre, isn't it? And then we have our soothing system, which is where we feel cared for and cared about. So if your child is in the red system, you cannot respond. They need you to respond from something else. So like if you start shouting at your kid, there's 2 people in the red system, nobody is going to change. So they need you just to be able to tolerate them, because emotions go up and down. You know, like a kid will go up and they will come down, and then maybe they will come for the walk, or maybe you just have to, if they're little, you put them in the car and you just put the shoes in the boot, and when you get there, things will feel different, you know. But you see, the family is the training ground for life. So children have to be able to voice their no. They have to be able to go to the end of the spectrum of massively freaking out and throwing things and aggression. And because if they don't practice it with you and it becomes safe, and then they're like, oh, I don't need to do that over time. I will let you know, or I will change and I will modify my behavior with age and with life experience. But if they don't do that at home, they keep everything in. And that's really dangerous then. You know, I meet so many teenagers and the mums say they were being so good up until now. And that's always an alarm bell for me, because they've kept everything in, you know. So then it could turn to self-harm, or it could turn to suicide.
Right. So if your kid has been a little shit all the way up to teenagers and still continues to be a little shit, you've nailed it as a parent.
You're rocking it. Okay. Gold stars all around. But if... You see, all behaviour is communication. So most of the time, kids are letting us know that they're not okay. And most of the time, we don't need to do anything. We just need to really accept that. Accept. We don't have to, you know, as a therapist, when the teens talk to me, sometimes I don't get why something is really difficult for them. But it's not my job to. It's just my job to accept that that's how they feel. And this is like the magic that parents can do as well.
So you know the way when your kid is being not outright angry, but just low-key nasty to you?
Yeah.
And it's hurtful. So they might say something that they know is hurtful, or they might mumble under their breath, or just be aloof to whenever you're talking to them. What do you do in that case?
I think it depends how old they are. Like
so we're
a teen
if we're talking teens, yeah. Like, I don't think there's the emotional intelligence really for anyone under 10 to be like that. Maybe there is. But, you know, when I think sometimes it's teenagers really know how to be hurtful to you. And it can be hurtful because we are emotional beings too. And I get that they're probably taking out whatever self-loathing they have themselves on you. But how do you deal with that? Do you just ignore it, or do you just act normal, or do you let them know that they're hurting your feelings?
So go back to the 3 circles. There is... Wait until you're in the green circle with them. Do you know, there's a lot of stuff about attachment online as well. This is another thing that I'm like, that's not attachment, that's not attachment. You know, all the memes and stuff. A secure attachment, the only thing it needs is your attention. So as a mom, we'll use that example, or a parent, someone says, my kid can be moody and say stuff under their breath and be hurtful. I say, great, you've noticed this in them. This is number 1. Okay, you've noticed that your child does that. The second part is, if they're talking like that, they're in the red system, right? So that's not a good time to talk to anybody. You know, don't talk to me at 8:29 when I'm trying to get 3 kids out the door, find some homework that's gone missing. You know, like, it's not the best time for me.
No.
So find the time when you feel good with your child. Now, I have 3 kids. My youngest guy's 9, and he loves, we've this like, I don't know, mezzanine floor. I don't even know what it's called. We've got like an open bit in the hallway that you can kick a ball through.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, Mom, let's play the crossbar challenge in the hallway. And I'm like, okay. So I know that that's his time that I could say something to him when we're not like eyeballing like this, because it could be very intense. I know with my daughter, she loves like, she loves loads of things, dancing, baking. We might be watching the Bake Off together. So the times that you're genuinely feeling really good with your child, and you know that they're relaxed and they're feeling good with you, that is the time to say something like, hey, do you know that time you say that stuff to me? I know it's because you're feeling out of sorts. Full stop. The rule, I don't know, who am I to be making rules? But today I'm going to make rules because I'm on holidays. Yeah. The rule with teenagers is to talk in bullet points. Right? Because their brains are working so fast. They do so much stuff. There's a great book called Brainstorm by Dan Siegel. It's red. I don't know, it's his red book. That explains a lot about the brain of a teenager. But just wait. And they know that in a really non-confrontational way, you've seen them. They know that in a really non-confrontational way, you're like, I see you're doing that and I get it and I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Because when the teens come for therapy, they're really looking for someone to say, it's you, being you is okay. Being you is in this room, being you is okay. And parents can do that at home as well. I know it's full of fear and worry. Have I raised an asshole? You know, and it comes with all this stuff. But when I meet parents, I say to them, tell me about who your child really is. Like, tell me about the great stuff. And their face lights up and they're like, well, they do this and this. I say, well, that is the child that you must remember in your mind, because they need you to cheerlead that bit of them. But instead, so much we remember the other stuff. And that bit won't be the defining part of them if we respond differently, if we as the parents try and tolerate and accept. And all teenagers know when they've been assholes, right? You know, this is the thing. They all know when they've done something or said something, and usually they're full of shame and fear about it, you know. So if we can kind of talk to them in that green circle, then things are a lot easier. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, it does, absolutely. So you were saying before we came in here that you see a lot and have seen a lot of teens that would be talking about suicide, feeling suicidal.
Yeah, a huge amount.
Has that increased since the pandemic, or was it before the pandemic? Like, you've been working for 18 years, so. I
think both. I mean, I do think that, like, since the pandemic, I do think things have got worse. I think, you know, as human beings, isolation is probably the number one detrimental factor in mental health, because we're a tribal species. We need to be together. And I think even in motherhood, we weren't designed to have babies and sit at home alone. We were designed to be in a community. And I do think teens suffered hugely without their peers. And the brain has to go through this peer development of, like, you know, kind of social hierarchy, figuring out where do I fit in, being rejected, finding your spot again, you know, all this normal, like, gut-wrenching stuff for parents to watch. But they missed that. But
and that is so important, isn't it? Because I know that there's the fear of your child being bullied, and being bullied severely is one thing, but being left out of certain things, like, we're all left out of stuff in life. And I think that if you know, you can't kind of follow your child around and hope that everyone's friends with them all the time and likes them all the time, because they'll get into the big bad world and they'll soon realise that actually that isn't the case. You need to work on your friendships, don't you? Yeah,
and I think that is a really good example of probably a parent being activated. I see this would be one thing a lot when parents come to me, and I think it's so brave. I mean, when I say all this, I'm a mum of 3 who went dark into her soul when she first became a mum, you know. So any parents who come my way, or any of the teens, I think, wow, they're so courageous. You know, to be sharing our biggest fears with somebody is enormous, and it can be enormously threatening, and our defence system comes out. But I meet a lot of parents who have fears around their children fitting in. And I've got 3 kids, 2 boys and 1 girl, and I experience all the same things too. Kids not being invited to parties, this, that and the other. But it's so good if your children can experience these things within the safety of us. And this is what I really would love parents to know, that we are the magic. We are the thing that children need. Like, they can come back and, you know, go crazy at home or be really upset at home, and we get to hold it together. Because now I see so much that, you know, buy this workbook for your kid, have this kid go here, have this kid go there, and that's helpful, but there is no replacement for the parents creating a space for the acceptance and the care at home. But there is nothing as triggering as the thought of our children being on the outside. So I do think that for the teenagers, COVID was really hard, and has had a huge impact on them. But also, I say to them, and not always, but the ones that I've asked, I said, what do you think about mental health? And they're the ones who I've met are so sick of it. And they're like, well, there's a poster on the wall in my school that says it's okay to not be okay. But the minute I hit somebody, go to punch somebody, don't do my homework, do this, do that, I'm in trouble. They're like, I wasn't okay. So what kind of not okay is not okay?
Yeah, just sullen.
Exactly. Yes, if you could just be quiet and not say anything, that would be okay.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, these mixed messages.
And teenagers are actually perceptive enough to even be able to articulate that. So interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, because they say we go to all these talks, but the minute I get caught out, and the nature of the teenage brain is that it's wired for taking risks. Like I'm not like a total expert on this, but like the part of your brain that uses logic gets smaller as a teenager, and the risk-taking part explodes. So they do take more risks and just do wacky things.
Crazy how we evolved as a species, because, you know, back in the Stone Age, right, we probably would have died at around, whatever, I don't know, 25, 30. Was that the average age we would have died?
Yeah.
So were teenagers having babies? Like, how in the name of God were they raising babies when their brains were so undeveloped? Like, it is crazy when you think about it, isn't it?
But maybe it was more helpful, you know, like maybe in some way, because I used to work, when I worked in Leeds, I worked with teen mums, a lot is sort of untrue, but a good bit. And I always thought they were great mums, because one, they had the stamina for it.
Yeah,
you know, they could stay up all night for days on end, and it wouldn't take a tack out of them.
And also, apparently, they just they give birth, and it's like out they come, spit them out,
their
into
bodies
the jeans, back out. You know, walking out the next day, like not an issue. Whereas, you know, as we get older, it just gets that bit more difficult.
100%.
And you know, and you see women, you know, in their later years, maybe have a baby, and they age 10 years overnight, whereas these young ones just look great. They have the glowy look, don't they?
I aged the minute I got pregnant. I got pregnant on my second kid, and my hair started to go grey, and I was like, what the hell is this all about?
So funny, isn't it? But like what you say about maybe teenagers, that risk taking, they just see it as, okay, you know, they don't think, maybe they just don't overthink things the way we do.
No, they don't. They're totally impulsive.
Yeah.
You know, massively, which is really hard for parents to sit back and watch. But then I say to parents, I know, I get this, but it's like about trusting the previous 14, 15 years of relationship, and knowing, you know, that image in your mind of your amazing kid who's kind, who does all these amazing things, not like, it doesn't have to be like Guinness World Record breaking amazing, just amazing in them. You have to maintain that part amongst all the madness, amongst the lack of logic and these totally wacky things that they've said or done on Snapchat, or all the stuff that they get into. You
You're laughing
know?
there. Can you give us a little?
Oh, I just hear so many mad stories about kids saying things to other kids that they're like, I thought it was funny. And then they're like, I can see now it's not.
Like, say, go kill yourself or go die or something, like mean things too, where they don't really think about it, and then they're in serious trouble. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. You know, so I think life is hard for teenagers.
But so when you are doing your therapy, do you see mainly teens, or maybe they're mainly their parents? And how do you? Because you did say that sometimes a parent doesn't want to actually look at themselves in the mirror and think, actually, what can I do to change or help this child? It's like they want their child to get fixed. They may not be willing to, or even see that they themselves need help.
Yeah, and I think this is the bit that I think maybe parents don't even know. I mean, nobody told me that when I was faced with the anger of my child, I wanted them to stop. I didn't know that I had to learn how to not be angry back, and that would be the change. You know, like I was the change my children needed. Nobody told me that.
Be the change you wish to be in the world, or something like that. Isn't that an old Mahatma Gandhi?
I don't know.
Saying, yeah. Well, and you can make that top level, as in like whatever's going on in the world on the outside, but you can bring that into your own home, that thought too then, can't you? Just be that change yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're all so, I think we're just all so very hard on ourselves and each other. And then like it's so easy to react to an angry child in an angry way.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you know, the other thing that we must all remember is that we operate from our parenting default mode. So when we're in an interaction with our child, say like a 4-year-old who's going mad that they didn't get the Christmas present they wanted to have, right? We could be, our body is having a memory of being a 4-year-old child and not getting what they want, and their parents shouting at them, and all of that rushes up, and we've opened our mouth and our mother has fallen out. I mean, like, it's fascinating and complex, and also shows in a wider context that there aren't enough supports for parents and aren't enough supports in these early days to navigate all of this, and that we do need to just find that place where we can be really kind to ourselves and not shrug it off and not just apologise. I apologise to my kids, it's fine. I say, yeah, but kids need change as well. The apology is great, but we need change as well.
Okay. So how do you go about helping a child that's, you know, very anxious or suicidal even? What do you do? How do you do that?
Oh, complex. Have you got any easier questions we could start?
Oh, sorry.
No.
I'll go into one of the really boring ones.
No, it's fine. So I think anxious, the thing we have to remember is that children, and this is the bit for parents to really hear, is that families work in systems. Okay, and I'm not saying that we're all like robots, but families work in systems, and children absorb the emotions that are happening around them, right? So we don't need to say something to children because they're feeling it anyway. And most parents go, oh God, Bethan, this is enormous pressure, you know, why are you saying this? And I say, but it's happening, so now you know. So if the parents can try and opt for a better way of being, right, just slightly, just marginally, then things could be easier. So often with anxious children, they're absorbing something that's going on in their environment, and it sometimes is school, but mostly it's something within the home environment. And
are you going to annoy people now by saying that? Because are people going to think, well, my child's anxious, are you blaming me?
Yeah, and I know that, and I know this stuff is really hard to hear. You know, I know I'm a mum. And it's not about blame, you see. It's about helping the family move forwards. Okay. So it's like parents say to me a lot, I get loads of phone calls, can you help my anxious child? And I say, I could, but your child would come to me, we'd have a great time working together. And then when they're back at home with you, you still might not know what to do and say. So I will help you know what to do and say instead, and see if that makes a change.
Right. So do you see mainly parents or mainly children?
Parents at the minute.
Okay.
It's kind of, from a child protection perspective, my room isn't set up for working with children anyway, because there's a lot of guidelines to meet from an ethical perspective to keep myself and the child safe.
Of course.
And I don't have that because I'm in like a public building and all the rest of it. And I just, I see how powerful parents can be. And it's not that anyone has to be better. It's just about doing things a little bit differently. Because I know also how stressed out parents are and how exhausting life is, you know. And
that's the thing too, because you did say something there and I was thinking to myself, God, when do I ever get the time to do that? You were saying about, you know, sitting down with your child when you watched Bake Off, or, you know, when you're playing CrossFit, or when you're playing kicking the ball to your kid. And I was actually thinking, like, when's the last time I actually played with one of my children? Now, they're, you know, in, you know, whether it's Scrabble or whatever, but usually there's a few of us around. But it doesn't happen very often because I'm either cooking for them, or helping them with their homework, or delegating. Like, there doesn't feel like as if there's that much time in the day between, you know, you getting them up and out the door for breakfast. I don't have time to sit down and wait for there to be a nice calm moment to say to them, oh, well, you know, last week when you were an absolute prick, you know, you really hurt my feelings. So how can you get that into your day, or not feel guilty about the fact that you don't actually get to spend that kind of one-to-one valuable time with them? And particularly if you've more than one kid, I think it's difficult to get the time with each of them. I did try to kind of do something like that a few months ago, where I'd maybe walk them to school, but now they're you know,
they're like, I don't want you to walk me to school.
Well, not only that, it's like everyone's leaving the house at a different time, and you know, they'd nearly be going, and my coffee's just ready, and it's the only time I'll get before I have to start work. So I just it's difficult for parents to work that in. Now, and I do find 100%. They do an awful lot of talking if you're giving them a lift. So being a taxi woman is actually a great way to get them to talk to you. But apart from that, do you have any tips for that? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one out there that feels this.
And me as well.
Okay.
Do you know, like I'm here as the expert who's worked with families for 18 years, but also the mother who is on the wild ride, you know.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about here is moments, you know, but I always think it's really interesting, right? Parents say to me, but they could come to see me for an hour. And I say, so you could find the hour, and a whole hour where really the bits that I'm talking about are moments in the day. Do you know, like the bit where, I'm trying to think of examples in my house, where your kids can't find something and you really want to say inside, you always lose this one thing. Couldn't you just find one spot for it? Couldn't you just, you know, this stuff. But you know where it is and you get it and you say, there you go, kid, have a great day. That is the moment.
Yeah.
Because he or they or she knows that you know that they always do this thing and it's really flipping annoying, but you overrode that and you just went, there you go.
And you just go, why don't you? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's those little things. It's not that you need to... It's not that you necessarily need to be
not.
sitting down for half an hour with them. And
No,
you're
not doing yoga in the corner of the room, meditating, waiting for them to arrive. And we're here.
I feel a bit better because I do have those little moments.
Yeah, but that's it. Yeah. Remember that secure attachment is your attention.
Okay.
I see that you're stressed. So maybe today I'm going to buy you a donut because I know you love donuts. And I'm not going to ask you what's going on, but you're going to know it's Tuesday and you've got a donut and you're thinking,
that's a bit odd.
God, this is great. Yeah, but you're just like, look, I see that I don't know what's going on, but there's something going on. And it won't make an eating disorder. That's something different altogether.
Oh, yeah, I know. Where you're feeding them, emotionally feeding them. Oh, yeah,
that's different. But, you know, so it's just the attention. It's not this kind of... So another thing the teenagers say to me a lot is, and so often the suicidal and self-harming teens, they would say like, you know, my parents keep saying all this nice stuff about me, but I don't believe it because they don't act like that most of the time. So if a teen comes to their parent and says, you know, I've just self-harmed, or the parent has discovered bloody tissues or a blade or whatever in the room, and the parent goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry that you're having a hard time, and then they go into this kind of a verse, I don't know what the word is, like almost like a story about how nice they are, but remember you're so nice and well, the teen has switched off them because they're like, yeah, but you shouted at me this morning when I couldn't find my book. Yeah, but you say this and you do that. So it's that we have to act
monkey see, monkey do
most of the time. You know, where like parenting isn't this like 100% all of the time thing, right? And kids don't need that. Kids need authentic. They don't need Mary Poppins. They would be like, what the hell, Mom? You know, they just need someone who can be authentically them, but also really just try and have those moments where it's like, I see you, I get you. We don't need to talk about it. We don't need to analyze it. It's not like a sports, you know, like I always say to parents, you don't need to do a post-match analysis. Do you know, match of the day, they're there with their board and the players. And kids need none of that. Okay. They just need to see, I get it. I see you. I'm going to help you.
And those touch points in the day are so very important. You know, they're like maybe even just the making the breakfast or the shooing them out the door or else the tucking them in at night. You know, the way more so than ever now, there's separations and divorces and children being living in different homes part of the week. So, and sometimes one parent will have more custody than another. So the parent that doesn't have as much custody loses out on those touch points. How do they make themselves feel like they're doing their very best too? Because sometimes when a parent does have the child, regardless of whether it's 50-50 custody or 70-30 or whatever, they feel they almost have to like make up for the time that they lost.
Yeah.
So everything has to be great and good. How do you help those people? Because I know that it is a really tricky one.
Oh, it's
like
so
I have friends
hard.
in that situation, and
Yeah.
you know, and there's one friend of mine that says, "Oh, I'm the bad parent because I make them do all the stuff," and the other parent is not the bad parent because they want to be the fun person when they're with them.
Yeah. I think it's really hard. I mean, so like the gold star response is if both parents can be on the same page and communicate.
Oh yeah,
but that's
but
like
if they could be
not
on the same page and communicate, they'd probably still be married.
Yeah.
That's actually the reality.
Exactly.
Because I think if there's any kind of love and communication and kindness and even just likability there, they'll tend to stay together because divorce is such a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
So,
very long and expensive.
Yeah, so I think that if people
Yeah.
are separated and divorced, for the most part, they don't like each other very much and they find it very hard to come to the table and agree on anything, never mind parenting. And particularly if you're parenting a child that's, I'm putting this inverted commas, difficult, because as you just said, it may not be the child that's difficult, it may be the situation that they're living in.
Yeah, so I think children are always looking for us to name stuff as well. So if one of the parents can say, look, when you're in that green zone together, right? If you can say, I know that here I seem really strict and really boring because in the other place you get to do all fun stuff, but I'm just teaching you how to be a person in life and name it. So it's not that the other person isn't. It's not like, and your mom or your dad they're doing you a disservice. It's not going into them.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this is what we're doing here.
Okay.
And the biggest thing a parent can do is be consistent with what they're doing. We all change, we all develop, we try stuff and we think, oh, that went horribly wrong, I'll do that differently, you know?
Yeah.
But if we can be consistent in how we respond to a child, if we can be consistent in our care for them when they're with us, that is huge.
Okay.
You know? So actually the fact that they're in different houses, receiving different styles of parenting, if you can see that the style of parenting they get somewhere else is having an impact on them, or you're allowed to name it.
Okay.
You know, so much of the time children want their parents to try. We don't always get it right. I mean, you kind of just start somewhere, right? You know, and you might say, wow, it seems really fun at your dad's house or your mum's house. You know, and yeah, but are you sometimes very tired because you don't go to bed before 11 o'clock? And say, yeah, I say, okay. You know, so trying to put words on what they're experiencing without feeding it.
Yeah,
you
or
know,
without bad-mouthing the other parent, which is, you know, people will say you bad-mouth the parent, you're bad-mouthing them because they're 50% of their parent. Or, you know, there's all that kind of take into consideration too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something that struck me as you were talking, you know, because I did have a podcast with Hilary O'Connor, a solicitor there this time last year, actually, and she was talking about it's challenging.
I think it
when
really is.
Your kids aren't with you all the time.
Yeah, but there's also then going back to the trust. I mean, I really trust in my children. I don't trust that they're not going to make mistakes, that they won't say and do the wrong thing. But I trust in them as people, and I trust that their life is going to be okay. I don't know what they're going to do. My daughter wants to be a hairdresser, which I'd love, and a baker on a Saturday, which would be amazing.
My goodness,
wouldn't
you
it?
literally have it so up there for your old age.
There we go.
Never a grey hair, and always fed.
Always eating cake.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be great. But so it's about knowing that, you know, earlier on, I think in my mind, you know, we spoke about so much of life is out of our control. You know, we were just born into the family we were born into with a set of genes, raised up in an environment that we didn't choose. And this is also the narrative for our children. They didn't choose the environment. We didn't know what was going to happen with our partners. And that then alleviates the pressure. You say, well, they will muddle through the same way I muddled through, the same way you muddled through, and we will be okay. And as my supervisor says, if there's not okay, there's always excellent therapy at the end of the day for them.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm like, well, there we go. But it is about trusting, you know, and knowing that, okay, in this other household, it's not perfect. Maybe it's not even ideal. I mean, maybe it's right to say if you think there's anything illegal to contact TUSLA.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like if there's a child protection query, it's not our job to say if there is or isn't. You just phone TUSLA anonymously and say, I don't know about this, if it's that kind of thing, you know. But we just have to kind of trust that life will unfold the same way our lives have unfolded, I presume,
and not
through
beat
ups and
ourselves
downs.
too much about it, because you can only do what you can do, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. And we will generally turn out okay, you know. And we have to hold the hope for that for our kids. Even, I mean, I see it when people drop their teens to me. I see the fear in the parents' eyes at the door. And I say to them, trust me, I will involve you as much as I can, but trust me that I will do my best here. And I know you've given me the care of your child. I know how precious this is. So trust me, and trust in the therapy and trust in the work, and we'll get there.
Are you obliged to tell the parent everything that the teenager tells you or not? Is there a confidentiality there? How does it work?
Yeah, so there's confidentiality, but if the teen is at risk of harming themselves or someone else, then I have to tell the parent then. And then I say to then I always say to the parents, I tell the child, and they're usually like, okay. And then I say to the parents, in a phone call, or maybe I'll meet them separately, I say, you have to tell your child that I've spoken to you. And so often they don't, because they're afraid that the teen's behaviour will get worse, or they simply don't know what to say. And I get that, which is why parents need help. You know, parents need support to know what to do and say.
So take me through what you would do with a parent if they have a difficult teenager, or they're finding their child difficult to deal with.
So if they're under 10, I'm not going to say things are a lot easier, because I don't want to take away from any parent's experience. But if they're under 10 or 11, it's kind of different. And if they're a teenager, things change a little bit. I mean, maybe a teen would need somewhere safe to go to talk. Maybe they would need therapy. But for the most part, it's looking at all behaviour is communication. So looking at the child and seeing, well, what is influencing this child that's making them stressed, overwhelmed, angry, ragey, wanting to break things, wanting to smash things. You know, what are the stressors in that child's life? And seeing where we go from there. Okay,
and just kind of working through with them.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Is it okay to say to a child, you know, if they're acting out or being just typical annoying child or whatever they are, is it okay to like tell them how fortunate they are to live in a country like this compared to, say, what's going on in other parts of the world, the horrors that are happening on other children? How can you say that to them without belittling their big problem that in their mind is big?
Yeah.
But, you know, you're looking at it like an adult and logically, like what you're saying, so you're not looking at it like a feeling point of view. So they're saying, oh, you know, woe is me. Yeah. But you're like, well, literally, like, you see, you've a roof over your head and two parents that love you, that your parents haven't been blown up.
Yeah.
Or how do you raise them to be empathetic about what's going on in the world without over worrying about what's going on in the world, but also realising that their problems aren't, not that they're not that important. Their problems are important, but in the grand scheme of things, they're lucky.
Well, it's very hard because it's probably two separate conversations.
Yeah.
Because children's brains are very egotistical. You know, so children's brains are wired to be all about them. So...
And that's what parents have the difficulty with. It's like, he's so selfish, she's so selfish.
But they're designed to be, especially in the teenage years.
And why are they designed? Is that just evolution?
It's this kind of like to keep them alive thing.
Okay.
You know.
Are you very warm? I can turn off the heat. You just
no,
took off your
I'm
scarf.
okay.
You're not okay.
Yeah, no, I'm okay
just
now.
Making sure you're not roasted.
Just sweat. I'm just sweating under the pressure over here. So I think it's probably two conversations to have. Okay. And this is where we so accidentally spill our world into the world of our teenagers or children, you know. And
guilty.
Yeah, but we all are.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I said something really wacky to my 10-year-old the other day, and she just looked at me and went, "Oh, Mum." And I went, "Yeah, totally."
Yeah. No, I said something like that to one of my kids, and they were like, "What if I said that to you when I asked you how you were and you said you were tired?" And I was like,
"Go to bed now immediately.
Yeah,
pack your bags. I'm sick of you."
So, and I did think, actually, do you know what? It wasn't the time to tell them how fortunate they were.
Yeah, but and that's our fears and worries. And I think, you know, again, it's like back to, so what I say to parents is, right, if you can have a picture on your wall of your kids separately now, if you've got more than one child, and have the picture of a really great memory. It doesn't have to be like a time you spent money or did anything fancy, but a time when you're like, oh my God, that was such a laugh. Because that's the child who you always want to remember in these times, because that's the child you're raising. They are just in their interactions with you, having different words, just spilling out about something or other. But ultimately, you're raising a child who has empathy. You're raising a child who is kind. You're raising a child who does get it, but at the same time, they hate you because you're putting boundaries on their world. You know, so they're kind of separate things.
Okay.
And I think the logic part of our brain is the very last part to engage. So, you know, we've got a body that just responds. You know, they just respond. And then they're like, oh, what did I say? You know, they don't have the life experience or the brain capacity to think, I'm going to give given what's going on in the world, I'm going to give you a measured response to this. They don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, the same way we don't all the time.
Yeah,
you know?
no, absolutely. What about children that tell you absolutely every single thought that's going on in their head?
Oh, yeah. Well, tricky, because I know for the parents I work with in the CAM parenting community, that can be one of the signs of autism as well. It's like their love language for their child is to just keep talking, kind of brain dump and continuously brain dump. I would say, though, maybe that child needs to be seen in other ways. You know, that they think that this is how you can pay attention to me, but maybe you could pay attention in other ways. You know, maybe... I don't know how. I'd need to know more about it. But, you know, maybe it's that they need this parent to spend a little bit of time with them. 2 or 3 minutes we're talking here. You know, we're not like, let's go to Disneyland for the day. We're talking little bits of time to see them in a slightly different way. Maybe this child thinks that this is the only way I'm seen.
Okay. Yeah.
And it might be, I don't know what it is. It might be watching 5 minutes of telly if you've no brain power left.
Yeah, going for a walk or something like that. It doesn't have to be...
Yeah, it doesn't have to be too hectic.
Okay.
You know, make it work.
Why do kids self-harm? Because you did talk about that earlier. Why? Is it like they hurt themselves? Is it because you hear this thing, and actually one of my kids did say it to me, so it's obviously been talked about on TikTok, self-harming or whatever. Where is it that they self-harm because self-harming like gets rid of the pain or something? They get some kind of a release from the pain that they have in their head? Like how?
Yeah. In my experience, lots of different reasons, but it's like it's a form of total disassociation as well, because most of the teens, I hate saying all, but it probably is all, but I don't want to do anyone a disservice in case they're like, not me, Bethan.
Yeah.
It's almost like a total shutting off from something that's going on, you know. So the most of the teens I talk to, when I really, really, really slow it down, it's like they switch something like this anyway. Like they switch off their brains. Their vision might go a bit funny. Their senses go a bit funny. So they literally switch off and they self-harm, and then they come back around again. And they almost don't know what's happened. They almost don't. But it's almost like trying to burst out of yourself.
So it isn't just an attention-seeking thing where they want people to see that they've cut themselves?
I don't think it's necessarily attention-seeking. I think it's like a maladaptive coping skill.
Okay.
You know, like we do things that are helpful, we do things that are unhelpful. But actually, I always say when I meet people who are self-harming, this is very clever because the self-harm is actually keeping you together right now. So we don't want to take away the self-harm. We want to make it safe. We might bring in blades that aren't rusty, plasters, Savlon, I don't know, whatever, you know, whatever to keep the wound safe. But we don't remove that. Don't say stop self-harming, because then they have nothing. We want to help them develop safeness in themselves so that this doesn't have to become the go-to. And so often there can be a voice inside that's telling them they're not good enough, telling them that they're rubbish, telling them all these dark things about themselves, and that's the voice that's running the show. So like they'll get a bit of homework that they can't, or they don't study for an exam, thinking of all the things I've heard over the years, and then they didn't do something, and the fear of failing or the fear of something, the voice tells them, see, I told you weren't good enough. And then they self-harm, and they're like, suspicions confirmed, look how terrible you are, now you're harming. So it's really bringing this really dark voice alive in their mind through the self-harm.
Okay. Goodness.
Yeah.
It's deep, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. As I was talking then, I was like, oh my God, I can even feel...
I'm a bit tired now after that. Yeah. Can I ask you, do you think the word anxious or, a child saying I'm anxious is bandied around a little bit too much these days?
Yeah, well, I would say the word anxiety doesn't exist. And that's a little bit like... yeah, I know.
Racy, controversial.
Yeah. Get me on my therapy high horse.
Cancelled here.
So... I'd say, but if it didn't exist, what else would you be? And I'm really worried actually about something. Okay, so you're worried. Because anxiety, I imagine it's like hovering over the water. And under the water is like really what's going on. So if we can get into it, anxiety is like a distraction from feeling what's going on. So then they might say, I'm really worried. Or like I was really worried coming over here to see you. I booked a taxi. My taxi didn't arrive. My friend texted me. So I was like, oh my God. I felt sweaty. My heart was racing.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, geez, I'm anxious. And then I was like, no, I'm not. I'm just really worried that Laura's going to be cross with me when I get there because my taxi's late. You see, so that's the kind voice that we need to put in our minds.
Yeah.
So it's like...
but did you not, like, come on, you're a therapist. Did you not think, how would I feel if someone was a little bit late for a podcast? I'd feel... Annihilate them, that's it, dead to me. No. Because,
100%. So like I did, then I was like, it's okay, I can only do my best. But you see, we have to really believe this thought. Because another thing that I think kids find really annoying who I've met is affirmations. Because they're like, tell me one more time I'm a strong, beautiful woman and I'll punch you in the face.
So don't be buying those cards for them.
Well, sometimes they can be really helpful. I don't want to slate someone if like that's their business and they do really, sometimes it's helpful, but it's that we need to believe it.
Oh, okay.
We really need to believe it rather than just trying to convince ourselves, am I a strong, independent woman? I don't know anymore. It's the same with the anxiety. So if we're just stuck on being anxious, we're missing what's really going on. Maybe I'm worried, I'm upset, I'm sleepless, I'm exhausted, my hormones are a mess.
I'm doing too much.
Yeah. So then we can move into the practical action of, what does this really mean? But anxiety keeps us a bit stuck in my opinion.
Yeah, okay.
I might get cancelled for it.
Well, won't be the first.
Not to date.
Won't be the first. I'm just looking to see about a little bit. Neurodivergency.
Yes.
What are we not all just a little bit neurodivergent?
I think so.
There seems to be so much of it now. Every second person I know has been diagnosed with ADHD. Is it just something that actually the neurotypical is just some kind of made up thing that we all are, it's like
some kind of man from the 1920s that existed once.
Yeah, exactly. And we're all a little bit wacky.
So when parents come to me...
I'm sorry, oh my goodness, when I say wacky, I don't mean people that are neurodivergent are wacky. Speaking from someone that I think... Anyway, but... what I mean by wacky or just a little bit different, not your typical brain. Is it just... Yeah,
well, here's the thing. We all have many voices in our head. We have, and that's not in like a psychiatric fashion. Yes. We just all do.
Yeah.
We all have fear, guilt, shame, worry, overwhelm. We all have a capacity for doing too much. We have a capacity for feeling depressed and overwhelmed. And, I meet parents that are stuck on these wait lists for years, and then they might get a diagnosis and then they're waiting 12 months for like one OT appointment in 6 months or something mad like this.
OT being occupational therapy.
Oh yeah. It's me and my high horse again. Yeah, exactly. Me with my dyslexic brain clinging on to words like she knows. And I say to parents, it does and it doesn't really matter if your child has a diagnosis or gets the diagnosis. Yeah, if it means something to you, great, but your child will still need you to parent you in the same way. They'll still need you to respond to their behaviours and how they see the world regardless. And then for the adults I meet who say, oh, maybe I need a diagnosis of ADHD, I say, well, like, do or don't, but you'll still have to create the same change in your life to get to where you want to be. But if having the diagnosis helps that, then yes, absolutely do it. But if you think it wouldn't, then maybe you don't need to.
But will the diagnosis not set someone on a path of leading a better life if they can be medicated or given psychiatric care or psychotherapy care. So I think I get what you're saying, and obviously they need to do the work at home too, but
and
there
especially
are some families that are literally struggling. They are burnt out because their child needs help and they can't get help.
Yeah, and it's really sad. It's something that I often think about myself, even for schools. You know, I've done a fair bit of work with schools, and the school environment has changed so much that then a teacher now has to be so many different things and adapt to so many children. But these kids need help in school as well. One SNA for 20 kids or whatever. I feel that maybe it's a political thing, but, society needs to see children more. To see children more and see who they are rather than change them to become what the system is. Why don't we see who the child is and invite that in and see what happens?
So the school system, right? So let's...
Oh.
Now that you've just brought that up, this wasn't even a question, but you've piqued my interest now. And being someone you said was dyslexic, reading right to left and can't count.
Yes.
And considered to be stupid.
Yeah.
We're ramrodded into an educational system that for the most part, some kids really struggle.
Yeah.
And I can think back now to when I was in primary school and there were kids, and I actually think about them a lot, and I go, I wonder how their lives turned out, because and there's a few boys, and I mean, with my doctor's psychiatric hat on now, which I'm not trying to be, but there was definitely ADHD, there was definitely autism, there was definitely people with learning difficulties, but they weren't stupid people or had lower IQ than any of us. They just couldn't learn the way we were being taught to learn.
Yeah, and I think it's a really big problem, but I say this without blame to anybody.
Oh, yeah.
I'll just preface it with that.
Oh, yeah,
people start throwing
the caveat in.
Tomatoes at me down the road or anything, slashing the tyres on my car. It's you see, we have two methods of learning from what I can see over the last almost 20 years. One is the language of logic. I knew how to book a taxi to come here because I go into the app. But then we have another learning, which is a knowing inside. Like when I went to get my kids' Christmas presents, I can look at them and be like, oh, they love that. Not because I learnt that in a book, not because I was taught it, but because I learned it through the experience of knowing them. And this is how children learn. Children learn through the experience of really knowing something and, seeing the sand in the soil in their hands and growing something. And, they learn through the experience of knowing inside rather than the logic. So boys' brains generally are about 2 years behind girls' brains for information input. So if you get a 7-year-old boy compared to a 7-year-old girl, the boy's brain generally is at kind of aged 5, but they're learning the same syllabus. So this increases huge feelings of not feeling good enough, huge frustrations within boys. And then the behaviour comes. And, so this is a really slippery slope. There's a great book on it called Why Gender Matters. And it's all about the differences between a girl's brain, the female brain and the male brain, and even that their hearing is different and that the makeup of our eyes is different, so we see things differently. Women are biologically designed to see detail, whereas men are not. Why? Because we can study our babies and we can know how they are in a flash. But men didn't need to have this capability as cavemen. They had to go off and provide, so generally their brains are more programmed for movement. So if I was working with a boy, I would never say, how are you feeling? So, I don't know how I'm feeling. I'd say, well, what would you like to do about this? Well, I can tell you what I want to do because that's about movement. Their brain, the language and the feelings, everything is totally different.
Is that then the reason why when you go to your partner, if your partner's a male and you have a problem, they want to fix it?
Well, exactly.
Let's fix it. And you're like, will you just listen to me moan and let me have a little cry and I'll feel a lot better. We don't need to fix this.
Yeah.
Is that why?
Yeah. 100%. So I remember we had a great one of these in our house, me and my husband, where I was really upset about something and he was in the fridge rooting around and he was like, I know what we'll do. That's
another male female difference.
Another massive issue. Where's the thing? And then he was like, I know what we'll do. We'll do this, that and the other. And then he just put his head around the corner from the fridge and went, I understand and hear what you're saying.
Oh, you've been well versed.
And it was really funny.
Yeah.
We both laughed. But this is exactly it, because men are programmed. And I'm not talking here about gender. Perhaps gender is like a whole different topic for a whole different podcast. But, you know, like if we looked at the brain capacity and the brain functioning, maybe is the better way to put it. Yeah, 100% men are like, come on, what do we do? And we're like, well,
just feel
actually,
just hold me while I cry and process my emotions.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're like, oh, for God's sake, will it lead to anything? I don't know. Like, what's at the end of this?
Will this massage lead to a baby?
Yeah.
I see some of those funny things, and it's like, you know, there's a woman holding a baby, and they're like, people ask me what I wanted, a girl or a boy. All I wanted was a massage.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
But yeah.
There was another topic actually that I'd brought up with you in our initial call, and I had just said to you we're going to focus on the teens and the parenting today, but we might as well, because we're talking about men and women, and how men and women perceive the colds and flus and sickness differently, as in how they feel them differently. So say, you know, the typical kind of man flu where you know the man might need to actually go to the hospital because he's got a little sniffle, whereas the woman will be still cooking the dinner, still making the lunches, still going to work with the cold. Do men and women actually perceive sickness differently, like, or is it just a case that men like to be minded a little bit more and women just have to get on with things?
So I'm part of a group of therapists who are way more academic than me. Okay. And I put it to them. I was like, this is like a proper academic thing. And they came back with really interesting answers. Oh. One of them said, but are women not primed for pain their whole lives through periods, priming us for childbirth, which is perhaps the most dangerous and life-threatening thing of all. So they said maybe us women, we're always being primed for pain from a very young age. So our pain tolerance is different. Someone else said, well, the Y chromosome, which I had to look into, is the male chromosome. I did not know that. Well, they die younger, generally are sicker, and there's more infant mortality rates with male babies. Yeah. So they do need to shout more to be heard more. But the most resounding thing that came back is, well, as a society, aren't we programmed to listen to men more than we are to women?
Slam dunk.
And this brought up, I was in a soft play place with my kids. I was trampolining and I looked down.
Oh, go you. What, like recently trampolining?
No, never again since this instant.
Oh, right.
It was about 6 years ago. And, and I looked at my kneecap and it was sideways. And I was like, oh my God.
Goodness, stop it.
And then I popped it back in. But I did
back in.
I was high as a kite.
Was it sore?
Well, not then. And then I got home and I was like, oh my God, it is so sore. My husband was with us. He drove home and I went to the hospital and I said, my knee's really, really sore. And the guy said, well, you know, come back in a few days. And I was like, no, but it's really, really sore. And he said, well, I can't look through your knee. And this is maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah. And so I just was like, oh, flip it, whatever. And I went home. And then 3 weeks later, I went back to my GP and I said, I've given birth vaginally 3 times. I know what pain is. I want you to sort my knee. And I'd snapped my cruciate ligament and had to have surgery to put it back together. But I was not believed.
Well, they do say that women, their pain isn't taken as seriously as men. They're given less pain relief when they're in hospital or in those kinds of situations. But look, listen, I talk a lot about this. The gaslighting of women in medicine has been around since time began.
Yeah, it was incredible. And then when I came to from the hospital, I FaceTimed the kids and I was like, oh my God, I think the kids have chickenpox. So then I went home and the kids all had chickenpox.
No one noticed.
No, I was like, oh, flip it, I'll be fine. But so I think that maybe... And also, so one of the therapists pointed me to a Harvard study which said that whereas women experience flu as like a head cold and, you know, the way they would describe it, men would describe it as like a crushing pain on my chest. So it may be that they experience things differently, but they also vocalize them differently and they're also heard differently. Does that make sense?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Have you read the book Invisible Women by Caroline Perez?
No, but I will.
You should get an audiobook.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say it would take me years to read it.
Yeah,
no, I love reading.
It'll make you angry.
Oh.
Yeah, be prepared to rage.
Yeah.
Basically, the entire world, society was built around men, even to the point that, you know, town planning does not take into account women travelling to work with a buggy, dropping a kid off to the crash on the way, and then hopping on a bus or else going into work. It's, you know, the town planning was built around men driving in and out to work.
It's incredible.
Really simple things like high-rise buildings, and you know, even to the point that, so it's not just medicine, it's like all parts of life. Even crash test dummies were tested on, were built like men. So more women are hurt more in car accidents because their bodies are smaller than men's bodies, because when they were doing crash test dummies for these crashes, it was all on men, so men are hurt less because it's not tested on women's bodies. All of this kind of stuff. We won't go on. But
it's incredible, isn't it, though, to think. And then you see, I feel that exactly dilutes down then to the infant mother experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of like, really society is not set up. I mean, babies turn into adults. This is the thing that people forget. You know, we'll put in mental health services when they're teenagers. No, I mean, even that's not happening. No, like, let's help mums and babies when they're younger. Yeah. You know, let's put in the supports. Let's build the footpaths. You know, let's have
that's
the basic
a crucial
things.
part of the. And I do think, and even myself, you know, many years ago when I had my firstborn, like none of my friends had. My friends had their babies at different times, and obviously I was living in an estate where both sides, you know, were out working and stuff like that. So I was at home with my baby by myself a lot.
Yeah.
And like what you said, we weren't actually designed for that kind of isolation. And it's not necessarily that I wanted to hang out with people all the time, but we were designed to kind of raise our babies in communal environments where there were other mothers raising their babies, and where there were, you know, your mother might have been hanging around, or your aunties or stuff like that. And we've really, the society nowadays with the 2.4 children or the nuclear family is very much, and it means there's an awful lot of pressure on parents to raise their children by themselves. Like, I would have had loads of Polish people that I would have worked with in the pharmacy over the years. They were here by themselves raising their children with no help. No help, you know, even in Ireland it was totally reliant on the creche, you know, and it's really tricky. And it's a lot of, it means that it's like a pressure cooker at home too, because it's just the 4 of you, or it's just the 5 of you, and there's no outside influence, and sometimes you just need someone else to talk to or give out about, or
someone just to help, because that was me when I became a mum. We had our first 2 kids in Dublin. We had no family. My parents came over for a few days at the beginning to take some pictures of the kids, and that was it. And that was the thing that ultimately left me leave my paid job and go out setting up my own therapy practice, because I couldn't sustain everything. I couldn't sustain. My youngest was really unwell when he was born, and it took a while to get him right again. We were in Temple Street for a bit. We were in CUH, and my work were amazing. They were like, take as much time off as you need. You know, and I was like, but I will never be able to make it up. I was like, how am I going to make up this invisible time when I have 2 other kids? And we were so reliant on the creche. Do you know, like, I remember dropping the kids to creche at 8 o'clock and people being like, God, that's awful. Should they not be with you? And I'm like, be with me. They're with me all the time. There is nobody else. I just need to shower by myself, you know? And I mean, it was my choice to have kids, etc., etc. But you don't know until you're in it what it's really like. You know, and even this year, my husband and I, we went to Spain, and we were gone for 3 nights, and it's the longest we've ever gone away in 12 years. We went away last for 2 nights together 9 years ago when 9 years ago when my son was born, and we went to a wedding, and I was breastfeeding, and my husband was like totally drunk at the wedding. Which was great for everyone.
And like, for families and for even relationships, that time together is very important, but it's hard to get, like, unless you have parents around, because otherwise you're paying for people to mind your children all the time. And I know that people do that, but having the family support, having someone that actually loves your child mind them for you, feels a lot better, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know? Like, even last week, my son's broken his arm, and they had to put it in place. in the hospital, so we had to go back the next day. And it was only I had the flexibility, and my husband created flexibility in his job we made it happen. So it is really hard. And I feel like, yes, women can work and have babies, but there's a lot of support that needs to go in place for that to happen. Like so much more.
So
it's not clean cut.
It isn't clean cut. And then when children act out, or when parents feel that they can't get a grip on things, like, we need more society support. We need more supports in general for mental health. I'm always banging on about that, but
yeah, and just for parents to know it's okay. Like, your house might be upside down, inside out. Your kid might be doing mad shit, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't.
I think
have
we're trying to
look
aspire to
any
this
other way.
kind of perfect life, and no life is perfect, and it's really important that people don't put so much pressure on themselves.
Yeah, and I see families not like a hierarchy, like a dictatorship, but as the mum, like, we are the most important people in our house. We set the emotional tone. When we are okay, everyone else is okay. They might not look okay. They might still hate us and want more time on the PlayStation, or want more time on Snapchat, or want their toast cut not in a triangle and the crust left on. But it's okay. Like, when we are okay, we have the capacity for everything else.
One last question before we finish up. How does someone deal with general mom rage?
Okay, so there's two things to this. One, they need more help. They're totally overwhelmed and stressed with life. It's about dialing down the responsibility, getting help if you can, lowering expectations.
That's really important.
Like, don't cook meals, buy pre-cooked meals. I had this amazing woman, when I was growing up, about 5 years ago, and she does this home cooking service where she comes to your house and you buy all the ingredients, and she makes stews, fish cakes, whatever you want, and she puts it in the freezer. So and that was like a lifesaver for me.
That is brilliant. I have a lady that comes, well, she doesn't come as much as she used to. She used to come mind the kids 1 day a week on a Tuesday, and then as the kids have got older, it kind of migrated into when she does come on a Tuesday, there isn't too much child minding to do, so she'll cook a few meals for me. And Jesus, like, sometimes weeks go by before she comes back.
I'm like, my freezer's empty. Where are you?
But on the weeks she comes, it's just brilliant. It's just that load off your mind. Because I think as a mum, all we think about really, a lot of our parenting, a lot of our mothering is feeding the children. And there's a lot of pressure there. And that's why even, like, I did a reel yesterday. I know that this podcast isn't going out until after Christmas, but I did a reel yesterday and I said, we're all going on about this feckin' turkey for Christmas. Like, just put a chicken in the oven. Yeah, it's actually tastier than a turkey's a real dry old bird. My mother-in-law would always say that a turkey's an awful dry old bird. I'm just getting a chicken, and that makes life so much easier. Why do we put the pressure on ourselves to have the Christmas day with all the trimmings, the nails done, the hair done for sitting in our own house? Yeah,
we had goujons and chips 3 years ago for Christmas.
Love
dinner
it,
because I just couldn't be arsed. I could have made it like an Instagram, whatever, but I didn't. So lower expectations. And get more help, let the kids watch more telly. Do you know what I mean? Kind of just leave it all go for a weekend and rest yourself and see what happens. But the other thing about mum rage that's really important to listen to is this can often be, remember earlier on we spoke about that being activated by our own childhood. So often in those experiences, the rage is the rage that we received as a child from our parents. And it comes out as this kind of towards our children in a kind of, well, I'm going to disappoint you the way that my parents disappointed me. So this stuff is really precarious. So always with mum rage, it's about lowering the expectations. Your stress system has gone balubas. You're in the threat system all the time. You need to find a way to dial down. Like every night I do between 30 seconds and 20 minutes of cross stitch, because I love cross stitch, but just a bit is enough to help me wind down. It doesn't have to be like a mammoth task. 30 seconds, then I'm like, I'm done, I need to sleep now. Okay. But also really mums must pay attention to the rage, because it's an unmet need perhaps along the way from your childhood, or something that's bubbling up from how you were responded to as a child. And you don't have to logically know it, because you're feeling it anyway and it's there.
But what about if there was no rage when you were a child? Like your mum didn't rage at you, it was actually the opposite. She was real calm. And could you rage because you're not your mum, and you find that you are maybe getting angry with your kids, but you feel that your mum may have been the perfect mother, and you're annoyed with yourself for that? Like, is there logic for that too?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
You know, because it's like, you know, we have all these voices in our head, so that to me sounds a little bit like the voice of self-doubt.
Okay.
You know, and the only way, you know, people talk about love, you know, we should just love ourselves more. I think that's very ambitious. I think that's a long way away.
We just like ourselves is enough, yeah?
Yeah, and I think if we can begin to have compassion for ourselves, because compassion is knowing that life is hard and being prepared to do something about it. You know, so we talk a lot about mindfulness, but we can really mindfully have sex. We can really mindfully break into a car. I could really mindfully hurt somebody. So we need to go to action, and compassion is action. Compassion is the inner ally. Compassion is that voice inside that has our best interest at heart. So for this mum, when she's raging, what would her best friend say to her? What would she say to her best friend? And can we bring a little bit of that in for ourselves? And we will always be met with rejection and fear and a voice that doesn't believe it. You know, well, I'm not worthy of the kindness because I'm such an awful mum. And then you kind of have to let those two voices sit at the table and have a conversation together, but always be trying to be more compassionate and kind
with
to yourself.
Yeah. One other thing that's come up there now, it just came into my head and now it's gone, so you need to give me a minute to
That's
think
okay. I'll have a wee drink.
I'll have a wee drink there, and I'm going to turn off the heat too.
Oh, I keep bashing the microphone.
Oh yeah. When you're doing the sessions with parents, are you trawling back over their childhood, or are you just giving them positive steps to be better parents themselves?
So it depends what they've come to me for.
Okay.
I mean, I think that there is you see, all we have to do is to notice that we've been activated and just create a little bit of separation between us and our child, because we become very enmeshed.
Yeah.
You know, they're shouting, I'm shouting. But really, if I say to a parent, okay, what is this bringing up in you? And they say, well, I feel totally out of control. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. Am I totally ruining my child? I say, great, let's work with that. You know, okay, so let's, okay.
So you're not trawling over old ground, because I have heard that people that like go way back into the childhood sometimes can.
I think it depends how it's done.
Yeah, okay.
You see, and I would say, you know, I know that when people come to me, it's a very safe therapeutic experience. I don't leave them lingering as this 3-year-old child for years before we move on. We identify what's appropriate, and what we do is we make it safe inside their body and inside their mind. So it's just like, I have a memory of something, and usually it's shame. Usually for parents, it's they feel really bad about something that they experienced, something they did, or something they've done. So once we can bring the kindness to that and the kind of the acceptance of it, then we can move on. But a lot of the work with parents is the practical, like, how can I help my kid do X, Y, and Z? Go to sleep at night. This is a big thing. How can I help them with different foods? How can I help them with anger? How can I help them with anxiety? These are all the things that we can put practical steps in place, because it's about how we respond differently as the parents.
Is it okay to drag them up the stairs by the hair to put them into bed?
100%. And if you're not, you're doing it wrong. But it totally is okay to think to in your mind, would they ever go to bed so I can just watch my program? Yeah. You know, this is the relentlessness of parenting. This is the like
coming down the stairs.
Oh,
but I need a glass of water. I want a bowl of cornflakes. I'm literally like,
get a power hose to them.
That's I know. I do find starvation and threatening to take all the devices away for weeks on end works a treat.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think, you know, it's never going to look perfect.
No.
But as long as we can look after ourselves in it, then we get to have a happy family life and set our kids up for life. That's all anyone wants, really. And we can do it without totally losing our mind.
Bethan, where can people find you?
Very good question. On my website or Instagram, bethan.o'riordan.
Okay, that's your website name as well?
My website is Bethan O'Riordan, just my name, bethano'riordan.com.
Okay, fantastic. Now I have my 2 burning questions for you.
Oh, yeah.
What advice would you give young people today?
That if they think it's important, it is important. Because so often they're not believed for something that's important to them. And remember, we don't have to agree with it. We don't have to understand it. Just if something is important to them, just believe it's really important to you.
Okay.
I know it sounds kind of funny, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. It's actually really good. I'm always surprised at how different people answer those questions.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I've ever had... I think maybe I've had the same answer once, but apart from that, and I've done 65 episodes now, people always have a different answer. It's great. And the other question is, what is the meaning of life?
Instantly I think of Darwin.
Okay.
There's a misquoted thing where it says it's the survival of the fittest, but the full quote is something like, is the dyslexic brain talking to you, so remember the something like bit. It's not the survival of the fittest, it's those who can adapt most to change. And so if we can create this kind of emotional flexibility, these skills for coping with life, being the tree that bends in the wind and all that, that's it. That's it for me, is how we cope with what comes our way with a certain degree of flexibility without this raw toughness, because that'll get us nowhere.
Well, if we can all parent a little bit more like that, I think we'll all be happier, kids and parents, yeah?
I think so, right? I think so.
A pleasure. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.